I opened my front door on a cold Tuesday morning in November and found a ghost standing on my porch. Not a real ghost, though for a moment my brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing, but my brother Daniel. My strange brother Daniel, whom I hadn't seen or heard from in 30 years, was standing there in an expensive suit with a leather briefcase, smiling at me like we just talked yesterday. My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm 58 years old, and I've lived in my parents' house in Greenville, South Carolina, for the past 12 years, ever since Mom's health started declining and she needed full-time care. I'm a pediatric nurse, or I was, until I took early retirement to become Mom's caregiver. My father passed away from a stroke in 2010, and Mom followed him this past September after a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. Her funeral was 3 weeks ago. Small, quiet, just me and a few of her friends from church. I didn't bother trying to contact Daniel because, as far as I was concerned, he'd made his choice 30 years ago when he walked away from this family and never looked back. But apparently, he'd been keeping tabs on us after all. Because here he was, standing on the porch of our childhood home, looking well-fed and successful and completely unbothered by the 3 decades of silence between us. "Kathy," he said, using the nickname I haven't gone by since high school. "It's so good to see you. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to Mom's funeral. I was overseas on business and couldn't get back in time." I stared at him. Couldn't get back in time? Mom's obituary was posted online 2 weeks before the funeral. He could have made it if he'd wanted to, but I didn't say that. I just stood there, blocking the doorway, waiting to see what he really wanted. "Can I come in?" he asked. "We have a lot to catch up on." Every instinct I had screamed at me to say no, to close the door in his face, to tell him he'd lost the right to walk into this house when he abandoned Mom and Dad and me all those years ago. But curiosity won out. I needed to know why he was here, so I stepped aside and let him in. Have you ever had someone from your past show up out of nowhere? Someone who hurt you deeply, acting like nothing ever happened? Someone who expects you to just welcome them back with open arms? If you have, you know that feeling in your gut that tells you this isn't going to end well. Drop a comment below if you've dealt with a strange family member suddenly reappearing. I'd love to hear how you handled it in the comments section. Daniel walked through the house like he owned it, running his hand along the furniture, looking at the family photos on the walls, photos that only included him up until 1994, the year he left. "The place looks the same," he said. "Mom never changed anything." "Mom didn't have money to redecorate," I said flatly. "All her resources went to medical bills and keeping this house from falling apart." He had the grace to look uncomfortable for about half a second before his smile returned. "That's actually why I'm here, Kathy. I know these last few years must have been hard on you, taking care of Mom by yourself. I want you to know I appreciate everything you did for her. And now that she's gone, I think it's time we settle her estate and split everything 50-50, the way it should be between siblings." There it was. The real reason for his visit. Not grief, not family, not making amends for 30 years of absence. Money. I felt my blood pressure rising, but I kept my voice calm. Split everything 50-50? Daniel, where have you been for the last 30 years? He waved his hand dismissively. I know. I should have visited more. Life got busy. You know how it is. I built a career in international finance, got married, got divorced, and traveled the world. Time just got away from me. But I'm here now, and I think Mom would want us to share her estate equally. We're both her children, after all. Time got away from you, I repeated slowly. For 30 years, through Dad's stroke and death, through Mom's Alzheimer's diagnosis, through every doctor's appointment, every hospital stay, every night I sat up with her when she didn't remember who I was or where she was, through me giving up my career, my social life, my own chance at marriage and children, to take care of our mother 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Time just got away from you. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Look, I'm not going to apologize for living my life. You made your choices. I made mine. But legally, I'm entitled to half of Mom's estate. That's just how inheritance works. I've already consulted with a lawyer, and he agrees. Unless Mom specifically disinherited me in her will, I get half of everything. This house, her savings, her investments, everything. I looked at my brother, this stranger wearing my brother's face, and I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. You've consulted with a lawyer already, before even coming to see me, before even pretending to care about Mom's death. You went straight to a lawyer to find out how much money you could get. I'm being practical, Kathy. Someone has to be. Now, I assume Mom had a will. I'd like to review it. My lawyer wants to see it as soon as possible so we can start the probate process. If you're watching this and feeling angry on my behalf, please hit that like button. Your support means everything, and it helps the story reach other people who might be dealing with greedy family members like Daniel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I share these stories to help people understand they're not alone in dealing with family betrayal. I stood up and walked to the small desk in the corner where Mom had kept all her important papers organized in folders, something she'd done obsessively even as the Alzheimer's progressed, as if keeping her paperwork neat could keep her mind from slipping away. I pulled out the folder marked Last Will and Testament and handed it to Daniel. He opened it eagerly, his eyes scanning the pages. I watched his expression change as he read. Confidence, then confusion, growing anger. This can't be right, he muttered. This doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense? I asked innocently, though I knew exactly what he was seeing. This will leave everything to you. The house, her savings, everything. It mentions me by name, but it says I'm to receive nothing. Nothing. This can't be legal. She can't just disinherit me for no reason. Oh, there was a reason, I said quietly. Keep reading. There's a letter attached. Mom wrote it 5 years ago when she was still lucid enough to make her wishes clear. Daniel flipped to the next page and began reading aloud, his voice shaking with rage. To my son Daniel, I am of sound mind and clear judgment when I write this. I have decided to leave you nothing from my estate because you left me and your family nothing for the past 25 years. No visits, no phone calls, no birthday cards, no acknowledgement that I exist. When your father died, you didn't come to his funeral. When I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you didn't call to ask how I was. When your sister sacrificed everything to care for me, you offered no help, no support, no gratitude. You are my son, and I will always love you, but love does not mean rewarding abandonment. Everything I have goes to Catherine, who earned it through years of devotion, sacrifice, and unconditional love. If you are reading this, it means I have passed away. I hope you have lived a good life, Daniel. I hope you found whatever you were looking for when you left us behind. But you will not profit from my death after ignoring my life. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's hands were shaking as he held the letter. This is emotional manipulation. This isn't legally binding. I'll contest this will. My lawyer says, Your lawyer says what? I interrupted. That a clearly written, properly witnessed, legally executed will can be overturned because you don't like what it says? Go ahead and contest it, Daniel. Spend your money on lawyers. But you should know that Mom had everything documented. She worked with an estate attorney to make sure this will was ironclad. She specifically anticipated that you might show up after she died, trying to claim money you didn't earn. She protected me from you. Daniel's face was turning red. I'm her son. I have rights. You had rights? You gave them up when you disappeared? You want to know what inheritance really means? It's not just money that gets passed down from parents to children. It's time. It's care. It's showing up. It's being there during the hard years, not just showing up when there's something to gain. I inherited this house and Mom's savings, yes, but I also inherited 12 years of sleep deprivation, 12 years of watching my mother forget who I was, 12 years of changing bedpans and managing medications and holding her hand during panic attacks when she didn't understand why she couldn't remember her own name. That's the inheritance you're demanding half of. You want half of that, Daniel? You want to go back in time and take half of those sleepless nights? Half of those moments when she cried because she knew she was losing herself? Half of watching her waste away? My voice was rising now. 12 years of exhaustion and grief and resentment pouring out. You want to split it 50-50? Fine. You take half the memories of her calling me by her sister's name. You took half the time she didn't recognize me and got scared because there was a stranger in her house. You take half the medical bills I paid from my own retirement savings when her insurance wouldn't cover her medications. You take half the times I canceled plans with friends, canceled dates, canceled my entire life because Mom needed me. You split all of that 50-50 with me, and then we can talk about splitting the money. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, coldly, "You're being emotional. This is a legal matter. I'm going to contest this will, and I'm going to win. You took advantage of an elderly woman with dementia to manipulate her into disinheriting her own son. Any judge will see through this." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Took advantage of her? Daniel, Mom wrote that will 5 years ago when her Alzheimer's was early stages. Her doctor evaluated her mental competency specifically for the purpose of updating her will. It's all documented. She knew exactly what she was doing. She remembered you perfectly, remembered that you left, remembered that you never called, remembered that you didn't come to Dad's funeral. That's what made it so painful. Alzheimer's stole a lot of her memories, but somehow she never forgot that her son abandoned her. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who felt entitled to something they didn't earn? Someone who thought blood relation meant they deserved what you worked for? Let me know in the comments how you dealt with it. And please, if this story is resonating with you, take a second to subscribe. These stories need to reach people who are going through similar situations. Daniel stood up, shoving the will back into the folder. "This isn't over. You're going to hear from my lawyer." "I look forward to it," I said, my voice steady now. "But before you go, there's something else you should know. Something else in Mom's estate planning that you might find interesting." He paused at the door. "What?" I walked back to the desk and pulled out another folder. "Mom didn't just leave you nothing, Daniel. She left you something very specific. Here." I handed him a stack of papers. He took them, frowning. "What is this?" "That's the mortgage on this house. The second mortgage, to be specific. The one Mom and Dad took out 15 years ago when they needed money for Dad's medical bills after his stroke. They borrowed $80,000 against the house. They'd been paying it down slowly. But when Mom got sick and I had to quit my job to care for her, we fell behind on payments. The bank was going to foreclose. So Mom made a deal. She couldn't leave you the house or the money, but she could leave you the debt. Congratulations, Daniel. You're now legally responsible for the remaining $63,000 on that mortgage. Mom specifically designated you as the inheritor of that particular obligation. It's all legal, all documented, all properly executed through her estate attorney." Daniel's face went white. "She can't do that. You can't inherit debt. That's not how it works. Actually, you can inherit debt under certain circumstances, especially when the deceased specifically designates someone to assume a particular financial obligation as part of a estate settlement." Mom's lawyer was very creative. "See, the mortgage is attached to the house, but Mom separated the obligation to pay it from the ownership of the house itself. I get the house, you get the debt. If you don't pay it, the bank can come after you personally. It's all explained in the documents. Mom spent her last coherent months making sure everything was legally airtight." I watched the realization dawn on his face. "You're lying. This can't be legal. Call your lawyer. Have him review the documents. It's all there in black and white. Mom's final message to you. You abandoned your family, so now you can have the family debt. Seems fitting, doesn't it? Actually, I need to be honest with you here, because this is important. That last part, about Daniel inheriting the debt, that's not entirely true. Mom couldn't actually force Daniel to take on the mortgage debt just because she designated him to in her will. That's not how debt inheritance works. But what was true is that the house did have a mortgage, and Mom's will had a very specific clause about it. Let me back up and tell you the real story, because the truth is even better than what I just told Daniel. Mom's will stated that the house would go to me, but that I was responsible for satisfying all debts against the property before taking full ownership. The mortgage balance was $63,000. However, Mom had also taken out a life insurance policy years ago, a small one, just $50,000. The will specified that the life insurance payout was to be split, $25,000 to me and $25,000 to Daniel. But Daniel's portion came with a condition. The condition was this: Daniel would receive his $25,000 only after he contributed an equal amount toward paying off the mortgage on the family home. If he chose not to contribute, his portion of the life insurance would instead go toward the mortgage payoff, and he'd receive nothing. So here's the math. The mortgage was $63,000. Mom's life insurance was $50,000. If Daniel contributed his $25,000 toward the mortgage, I'd contribute mine. That would be $50,000 total, leaving only $13,000 still owed. We'd split the remaining payments, and he'd still get his life insurance money back eventually through the estate once everything was settled. But if he refused to contribute, the entire $50,000 life insurance would go to the mortgage, leaving $13,000 still unpaid, which I'd have to cover myself. But Daniel would get absolutely nothing. Mom had structured it so that Daniel's only way to get any money at all was to actually help the family, to contribute something, to be part of the solution, instead of just taking. It was her way of testing whether he'd come back for genuine family reasons or just for money. I handed Daniel the real documents, the ones explaining the actual terms of the will. He read through them slowly, and I watched his face go through a range of emotions: anger, calculation, frustration. So if I pay $25,000 toward the mortgage, I get $25,000 from the life insurance, he said slowly. That's zero net gain for me. I'd basically be donating $25,000 to help you keep the house. No, I corrected. You'd be contributing to paying off our parents' debt. Our parents, Daniel, the people who raised you, fed you, put you through college. You'd be helping clear the debt they incurred trying to survive illness and old age. And yes, it would help me keep the family home. The home where we grew up. The home where Mom spent her last years. The home I've been maintaining and protecting while you were off living your life. And if I don't pay, then you get nothing, and I'll figure out how to handle the mortgage myself, like I've been figuring out everything else for the past 12 years. Daniel stared at the documents for a long time. I could see him calculating, trying to find an angle, trying to figure out if there was any way to get money without having to give anything first. Finally, he said, I need to think about this. I need to talk to my lawyer. Take your time, I said, but the probate court has deadlines. If you don't make a decision within 30 days, the default terms kick in. The full life insurance goes to the mortgage, and you're out completely. Mom thought of everything. Do you think Daniel paid the money? What would you have done in his situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're invested in finding out what happened next, please hit that subscribe button. I promise the ending of this story is worth it. Daniel left that day without another word. He got into his rental car, a luxury sedan, naturally, and drove away. I watched him go and felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me hoped he'd do the right thing, that somewhere under all that selfishness was still the brother I'd grown up with, the one who used to build blanket forts with me and share his Halloween candy. But mostly, I just felt tired. 3 days later, Daniel called. "I've talked to my lawyer," he said without preamble. "He says Mom's will is legally sound. I can't contest it. But he also says this arrangement with the life insurance and the mortgage is creative. Probably legal, but creative." Mom's estate attorney was very good at his job, I said. "Look, Kathy, I don't have $25,000 just lying around. My divorce was expensive, and I've got my own debts. Even if I wanted to pay toward the mortgage, I can't." I didn't believe him. His suit alone probably cost $2,000, and he was driving a rental luxury car. But I just said, "That's your choice, Daniel. The terms are clear. There has to be another way. Can we negotiate? Can I pay a smaller amount? 10,000? 15? No. Mom set the terms specifically. 25,000 or nothing. Those are the only options." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised me. "She really hated me, didn't she? Mom, she really hated me for leaving." "No," I said, and I meant it. "She didn't hate you, Daniel. She was hurt. She was disappointed. She spent years wondering what she'd done wrong, why her son didn't want to be part of her life anymore. But she never hated you. If she hated you, she wouldn't have given you a chance to get anything at all. She could have left you out of the will entirely, with no opportunity to claim anything. Instead, she left you an option, a way to be part of the family again, even if it cost you something. That was her final gift to you, a choice." He hung up without responding. 2 weeks passed. I heard nothing from Daniel. I assumed he'd chosen to walk away, to let the life insurance go toward the mortgage and disappear from my life for another 30 years. I was okay with that. I started making plans to refinance the remaining mortgage balance, to figure out how to make the payments on my own. Then, on day 28 of the 30-day deadline, I received a wire transfer notification. $25,000 from Daniel Hayes, with a memo line that said simply, "For the mortgage." I sat at my kitchen table staring at the notification on my phone, trying to understand what it meant. Had Daniel suddenly grown a conscience? Had he decided to do the right thing? Or was this just a cold calculation that getting 25,000 eventually was better than getting nothing now? 3 days later, a check arrived from Mom's estate attorney, $25,000 from the life insurance policy, payable to Daniel Hayes. A separate check for $25,000 was issued to me, and the estate attorney's office included a letter explaining that the mortgage had been paid down to $13,000, which would be my responsibility as the inheritor of the house. I expected Daniel to call, to demand something, to explain himself, but he didn't. Weeks passed with no contact. I paid down the remaining mortgage balance using some of my own savings, and finally, in January, I received the deed to the house, free and clear. It was mine, fully mine. The house I grew up in, the house I'd fought to keep, the house that held every memory of my parents. It belonged to me now, with no debt attached. In February, I got a letter in the mail, not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter, forwarded from Mom's estate attorney's office. It was from Daniel. "Kathy," it read, "I don't expect you to forgive me for the last 30 years. I don't expect us to have a relationship or pretend like we're a normal family. But I wanted you to know why I paid the money. It wasn't because I'm suddenly a good person. It wasn't because I had some grand realization about family. It was because Mom gave me a choice, and I realized that for 30 years, I've been choosing to walk away. From Dad's funeral, I chose not to come. From Mom's diagnosis, I chose not to call. From your calls asking for help, I chose not to respond. I chose to prioritize my comfort, my convenience, my life, over being there for the people who raised me. And every single time, I told myself I had good reasons. I was busy. I was dealing with my own problems. I'd visit next time. I'd call tomorrow. But tomorrow never came, And suddenly 30 years had passed. When I read Mom's will, I was angry. I felt like I was being punished for choices I'd made years ago. But then I realized Mom was doing me a favor. She was giving me one last chance to make a different choice, to choose family over money, responsibility over convenience, connection over comfort. So I paid the 25,000 because I wanted to make a different choice, just once. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be part of your life. But I wanted you to know that Mom's final gift to me wasn't the money. It was the chance to finally do one right thing after years of wrong ones. I hope the house brings you happiness. I hope you fill it with better memories than the ones I abandoned. Take care, Kathy. I read that letter 3 times, sitting at the kitchen table where Mom and I had shared thousands of meals, where I'd helped her with puzzles during her lucid moments, where I'd held her hand when she was scared. And I cried, not because Daniel had suddenly become the brother I wanted, but because Mom's plan had worked exactly the way she'd intended. She'd known Daniel better than anyone. She'd known he needed to be forced to make a choice, needed to be put in a position where the easy path led nowhere, and the harder path led to at least the possibility of redemption. She couldn't force him to be a good son, couldn't force him to visit, or call, or care. But she could give him one final test, one final chance to choose differently. And he had. Not perfectly, not with full redemption, not with a sudden transformation into the brother I'd always wanted, but he'd made a different choice than he'd made. For 30 years. And maybe that was enough. Before we finish, I want to ask you something. Do you think people can really change? Do you think Daniel's choice to pay the money meant anything? Or was it just a calculated financial decision? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you think. And please, if this story moved you at all, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach people who need to hear them. I still live in the family house. I've started updating it slowly. New paint, new floors, turning Mom's bedroom into a reading room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I've gone back to nursing part-time, picking up shifts at the local children's hospital. I'm rebuilding my life after 12 years of putting it on hold. And Daniel? I haven't heard from him since that letter. I don't expect to. But I did send him a short response, forwarded through Mom's estate attorney. It said simply, "Thank you for making a different choice. Mom would be proud. So am I." I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again. I don't know if I even want one. But I know that Mom's final act wasn't about money. It was about giving both of her children what we needed. She gave me security, stability, and the home I'd earned through years of devotion. And she gave Daniel something he probably needed even more. A chance to prove to himself that he could still choose family, even when it cost him something. That's the inheritance that really mattered. Not the house, not the money, not the debt. The lesson Mom left behind for both of us. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who you show up for. It's the choices you make when it would be easier to walk away. It's the sacrifices you're willing to make when nobody's forcing you to make them. I have the house now, free and clear. Every room holds memories. Mom and Dad's wedding photo on the mantle, the height marks on the kitchen doorframe where they measured Daniel and me as we grew. The garden Mom planted that I'm learning to maintain. This house is my inheritance, but it's also my responsibility. My choice to stay here, to honor the life Mom lived, to keep the family home standing. Daniel made his choice too. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real inheritance Mom left us both. The freedom to choose who we want to be, even if we've spent years being someone else. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you've dealt with estranged family members, if you've struggled with inheritance disputes, if you've wondered whether people can change, I hope my experience gave you something to think about. Please share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe for more stories about family, betrayal, justice, and sometimes unexpected redemption. My name is Catherine Hayes. This is my house, my home, my inheritance, earned through years of love, sacrifice, and showing up when it mattered most, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.